Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. This is an on-site recording of the podcast. The reason I'm recording it on site is because this is the home of our Tampa camps that we hold at Better Pickleball, that we host at Better Pickleball. And this is a reminder of how we want to improve as pickleball players. In other words, some of the important concepts. And the one I want to talk to you about today is 1TT. That's a group. One of the groups in our camp is 1TT at our camps. We put it on their name tag. And the reason we do 1TT, that's one thing at a time. And we're going to talk about that in today's podcast. Speaking of one thing at a time, if you're not yet a member of our pickleball system, highly recommend you check it out. If it's the right time for you to take the plunge in your game to really improve and play your best pickleball, join us inside the pickleball system. It is step by step, one thing at a time, the topic of today's podcast. So let's jump into the concept of one thing at a time. And let's just talk about, let's go outside of pickleball for a second, then we'll bring it into pickleball and apply it here. So let's say that, you have moved into a new house and you want to get it to where you want it for you. And so you get in there and you have a list of, 50 things that you want to do, painting kitchen, changing cabinet, different furniture. Maybe you want to move a door. Maybe you need a shed. You want to do something in landscaping. I mean, you can think of everything that you would like for your house. And, it's a Saturday, right? The first Saturday you're in this new house and you say, you know what? Let's do everything on the list. That's nonsense, right? I mean, you're like, that doesn't make any sense, Tony. I agree with you. But a lot of times that's how we view our pickleball, right? We want to do everything at the same time. We want a third shot. We want to return serve. We want to win more games. We want to have less errors. We want to understand what we're supposed to do in this situation, in that situation, deal with lobs and bangers all at the same time. I wish there was a way to package that, right? Put it in a vial and deliver it to you. Be happy to do it. Be happy to give you, some sort of magical salve to fix everything in the game at one time. Not realistic, right? And so what happens is we set that for ourselves, right? We're like the homeowner that says, I'm doing everything. And then what happens is we actually don't end up doing anything. And then we're sitting there Sunday evening or the next week going like, I didn't do anything that I was supposed to do. So we start feeling bad about ourselves, right? And the same thing with pickleball, right? I have a list of 80 things, right? Or at least in my mind, I have all these different things I need to do. And so what happens is now I feel terrible because I'm not doing any of them because it's impossible because I have too many things to do. And here's the kicker too. In today's day and age, you have your list, right? Whatever your list is right now, 20 to 50 things, right? Whatever it is in pickleball. And whether you have it written out or not, it's up in your brain, it's working in there. It's in the back burner, just eating away bandwidth for you. But here's the thing, whatever your number is, I guarantee you there's a video waiting for you on YouTube that's going to give you 2 or 3 more, maybe 5 more, and then you're going to get a newsletter from somebody that's going to say, you know what, this is really what you need. And so you're like, oh, I need that. So let's add that to the list. So now you're not only, you haven't finished the 20 to 50 you already have, but now you have all these other things to do. Going back to the home, it'd be like, okay, I have like my 50 things I want to do, but I'm watching HGTV or whatever the current trend is for that kind of stuff, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, wow, the latest thing is, curved sconces or something. So now I add that to my list and I never get anything done because I'm always, not getting the 50 things done. Plus it's always being added to, right? Because of the overflow, the influx of the information out there. It's just such an overwhelming environment we live in right now. It's a plus because, you can find almost anything you want. It's a negative because it's too much, particularly when you're trying to work on your pickleball game or something that's like step by step, something that's one thing at a time as pickleball. And that's how you're going to get the most out of it, right? If you're always being bombarded with the latest, craziest thing you need, it's really hard to improve as a pickleball player. And the risk is that you end up being frustrated, right? You end up feeling like a failure because, you had this idea of what you were going to be playing like with these 50 things or 20 things, and you haven't gotten there because you haven't really processed that it's not possible to do that. So when you think about your journey as a pickleball player, the concept of one thing at a time cannot be overstressed enough. Now, listen, you can broaden it a little bit. You can do a couple of things as long as they don't overlap with each other. For example, when players leave our camp, they leave with a 5-step action plan. So that in there we give them 5 things to do, but they're in different areas, different buckets, right? You can't do like volley and ground stroke at the same time, or return a serve and block volley at the same time. It's very hard to do those two things at the same time, but you can, for instance, work on your dink technique and your lateral footwork, right? Something like that. That works. Or you're listening to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast, that's mental, and you're working on your volley. That's fine. So they don't overlap. But the key is in this process is you really need to start thinking about it one thing at a time. Now, the next sort of, not complication, but the next thing to think about is, what's the one thing? That's where understanding priority is so important, right? And again, I'm going to put a plug in for the pickleball system, because in the pickleball system, you don't have to wonder like which one's more important than the other. We give it to you like step by step, and they're in order. So the step one precedes step two, and so on. It's not like, well, which step should I follow now? No, just the next one on the list of steps, right? It'll get you where you want to go. And what happens is, we'll get a video and we'll say, oh, that's a very powerful technique. But maybe it's a very powerful technique for pro pickleball players who already have all the other stuff in their toolbox, right? Maybe it's not right for us right now. And there's a video that we did at the Into Pickle channel. I'll put a link in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put it up here. That talks about the 3 questions you have to ask yourself before you receive information, right? Correct, complete, and is it right for you? And I get into it more in that video, so I'm not going to belabor it here. And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast on a podcast provider, great, fantastic, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're at. If you can, check it out on the YouTube as well. We have Pickleball Therapy as well, and you can subscribe to the channel if you so choose. But so when you think about your one thing at a time, it needs to be one thing at a time, not 50 things at a time. B, you got to be really careful about allowing getting hijacked, basically. We did a podcast on that. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it was at the end of the year talking about don't let your journey be hijacked. These are related concepts, meaning don't let somebody else come in and hijack your journey. Even if you're doing one thing at a time, you got one thing locked in, somebody else suggests something to you, and now you get that locked in. Well, you're letting them hijack your journey. You be the boss of your journey. If you need guidance, again, we're happy to do it inside the Pickleball system through these types of programs like the Pickleball Therapy podcast, or in our academy courses as well. We'll give you the no-nonsense, actionable, this is what you need to do. But you want to make sure that what you're working on is what's most relevant to you. So there's locking it in and not letting somebody else hijack it, and also knowing the priority, right? What is it that's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? If you need one piece of advice I can give you right now is return a serve. Pretty much, don't pass go, don't do anything else. Return a serve solves a lot of problems in your game, and I guarantee you, if you're like most players, you're probably not working on your return a serve. It's not a criticism. It's life. I understand. There's third shots. There's all these other shots that we think we need to work on, and so we bypass the return a serve and then end up playing behind the 8 ball and trying to get out of trouble with these other shots that we've worked on. So if you want to work on one shot, you're not sure what to do, return a serve is a good place to start. But whatever it is that you're working on, right? Make sure that you are focusing on this one thing at a time. Avoid the temptation to have, 50 things on your list, because the chances are better than not that you're not working on any of the 50 things, and you'll avoid the frustration of feeling lost out there and feeling like overwhelmed, because you'll know that the only thing that you really need to focus on is this one thing or 2 things that you're currently focused on. And that if you do that, you trust the process and you say, okay, if I do this, I know that big picture, long-term view of my game, I'm going to improve. And then the next thing that you want to work on, it'll still be on the list. It'll be sitting right there. We like to think of pickleball as being a lifetime of learning. It's a lifelong journey of learning. As long as you remain curious as a pickleball player, pickleball will have something to teach you. So there's always going to be a next thing to put behind, when you're done with this thing. Don't worry about running out of stuff to do. But the flip side is that you can't do them all at once. And trying to do them all at once is an ineffective way of advancing in the game. There's a quote that we really like. If you ever come to one of our camps, you're going to hear this live, because this is a fantastic quote. It's from the great martial artist Bruce Lee. Rest in peace, Bruce. But the quote is this. He said, "I fear not the fighter who has practiced 10,000 kicks one time. I fear the fighter who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." So imagine, picture those 2 different fighters. You have one fighter who has tried out 10,000 kicks, but can't do any of them, right? Well, because doesn't know how to, only did them one time, right? All the 10,000 kicks. But then next to that fighter, you have another fighter who doesn't have a lot of variety in their kicks, but that one kick, they know it really well. That's the fighter you got to worry about. And pickleball is the same way. Pickleball is about doing a lot of little things better and better and better, right? And the way you do that is by locking in the one kick or the one shot, the one thing, getting very good at it. Great. Then move on to the next thing. And that's how you keep one thing at a time in your focus as you're working on your improvement. Let me know in the, send me an email at betterpickleball.com, therapy@betterpickleball.com, and let me know what kind of content you like in the podcast. Are you liking more the perspective side of things? That's like where we talk about bowl of ice cream and things like that. Are you enjoying the play aspect of it, which is like when we talk about hyper-focusing on the ball? Or do you like the improvement or progress side of it, which is like this podcast and video, where we're talking about the journey of improvement and locking in one thing at a time? Our plan is to do all three during the podcast, but it'd be helpful to know which one you like the best, which one helps you the most, and which one resonates most with you. And then be on the lookout. I don't know when this podcast will drop, but we have a book coming out on the mental side of pickleball. I want to make sure that you are in the know on that. If you're on the email list inside Better Pickleball, we'll send you notification. If you are certified as a therapist, you'll get first notice that the book's coming out. So if you want to become a pickleball therapist, send me an email, same email, therapy@betterpickleball.com. Put therapist in the subject line. That helps me out to identify who's asking about a therapist, and I'll send you the information. Then you can make the decision whether becoming a therapist is right for you. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, please consider rating and reviewing it. Share with your friends. If you enjoy the podcast, they probably will too. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.